People in North Meath have been waiting for a decision to be made on the Emlagh Windfarm. That decision is forthcoming, and you will soon discover as to whether you're going to live within close proximity of one of the 46 industrial wind turbines that are planned as part of this project. We're joined once again to talk about this by Fine Gael TD for Meath East, Regina Doherty. Good morning to you, Deputy Doherty, and thanks indeed for joining us. And you're highlighting how legal notice of this decision was given last Friday, and it's within the next 10 days or so.
Yeah, the normal procedure is that when a decision is due, and I think and your listeners know, we've been waiting for this decision. We thought we'd get a decision in September. It was extended to October, then it was extended to November. The legal notice was issued on Friday to give us 14 days notice that within that period, since Friday, that we will have a decision by the board. And I am aware, because I ring on board Clonala probably at least once or twice a week to see what's going on. They had, the board directors and members of the board had received the inspector's report a number of weeks ago, so we were definitely sure that it was going to be adjudicated on in this board meeting. And the legal notice confirmed that obviously on Friday. So now we're sitting, waiting for the decision to come down, and I suppose anxious doesn't even come close to describing how people in North Meath are feeling at the moment, Michael. And I mean, they're still very hopeful that there was a very large sense of objections put in over the course of the 5 weeks of the oral hearings, and there's a very large breadth of objections. It wasn't just simply that we don't like the look of them, but there still is a huge sense of anxiousness in North Meath, in Barnstown, in Castletown, and Wilkinstown and Rathkenny, so, and even on the boundaries of Cal. So we'll be sitting with bated breath, obviously, for the course of the next couple of weeks, and keeping absolutely everything crossed that it goes in our favour as opposed to potentially the other way.
Well, the expectation is that this will be granted planning permission, isn't it?
Well, now I will bloody well hope it's not. That's not the expectation, Michael, on the basis that the very, very small planning application in Nobber was refused on very substantial grounds of visual impact and obviously the impact on our heritage. That was only a small little wind farm of 6 turbines. This is an enormous plan to build 46, as you say, industrial turbines in a very rural, very agricultural and very rich in heritage area. So I would be very hopeful that it will be a non-grant, that they will be refused their planning application. And then that would give me further hope. Obviously, there is a review for people to take it further if they want to take it further. But the fact that the 8 cents guaranteed per kilowatt runs out on the 31st of December wouldn't really allow anybody to review and to appeal the decision in a month to get in within that window. So I would be very hopeful that if it's refused, that would be the end of this project. Whereas obviously if it's granted, it would be only the start of a very long battle for us to take it to the next step.
Well, I take it we'll know one way or another on Friday or on Friday week.
Yeah, definitely.
It's every 7 days, I think, that the board publishes its decisions,
report,
and it has given 14 days notice from last Friday. So either Friday or Friday week. As I say, the controversial aspect of this all along has been the guidelines which it will make its decision on.
Well, now, yes, that's very true what you said. And here we are still waiting. I've had this conversation with you myself, and Dominic Hannigan and Helen McEntee met with the Minister Alex White on the 1st of October to be given a face-to-face briefing that the reason for the impasse was that they couldn't agree and that they were going to appoint an external independent adjudicator to bang their heads together to come to an agreement. Well, now, is today the 22nd of November? So nearly 2 full months later, and we still have no independent adjudicator. So, I give up. But either way, anyway, I think we always knew that this plan was going to be adjudicated on the old guidelines, because even if the new guidelines were issued tomorrow, they have to go to public consultation. So, but as I said, I'm very hopeful and proud of the people who over 5 weeks set out clearly their objections as to why this isn't suitable. This particular type of application in this particular area, it's an industrial sized application that's not being put in an industrial area, and I think that's the single and biggest flaw with regard to our planning process at the moment, and it leads obviously straight back in for people like me to feed into the white paper on our green energy plans that's going to be released next week and the week after, but obviously far more importantly for me, for my constituents, is the pending application a decision this week or next week, and obviously what the outfall or the fallout from that will be, and what our response to that will be.
Okay, today being the 24th, just for the sake of our listeners' sanity, if they're checking their calendars and such like, but that time has come and gone, in other words, and it'll be adjudicated on under the old guidelines, but that may or may not be the end of it. I mean, even if we assume the planning permission is granted, the decision that An Bord Pleanála makes can be challenged through the courts, can't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I have no doubt that if that is the road that happens, then that's the road we'll pursue. The difficulty and the unfairness of that is that you have a very large group of residents who will have a very large bill to proceed to the High Court, fighting against a very rich and wealthy international organisation. And so that's the unfairness of it, and that probably goes to the root of the problem of why the guidelines have failed people and the political process has failed the people of North Meath over the last number of years, because it's taken far too long. But it actually would give us the basis of a judicial review for an appeal if and when. But anyway, look, I'm half glass full. We're going to sit tight and hope for the best. And when it is refused, it will allow the healing that needs to be happen in the north of the Meath, where families are fighting with families, neighbours are fighting against neighbours because of this fierce opposition to this particular project. I would tell you it's 10 to 1 in the opposition of the people who are supporting this versus the people who are opposing it in the north of Meath, and it will stay that way if the planning is granted, whereas if it's refused, it will allow people the space to be able to heal and to get back to normal lives, and hopefully, obviously, that's what I hope happens the next couple of weeks, and that's what we'll be facilitating if and when this plan is refused, as it should be refused.
Are you articulating fear of the unknown? I'm not sure if you've seen the Irish Independent today, but the outgoing boss of Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, Dr. Brian Motherway, is talking about the need for wind energy and indeed the great impact that this can have on our environment. He says it's a great pity the way the debate on wind has gone. Instead of having an honest debate, some people are more focused on coming up with facts in inverted commas, which say it's a fake technology and doesn't do anything. We have to recognise there are people living beside wind farms without any difficulties, but very often there are fears about developments, and I think we have to have the right kind of debate and consensus-seeking conversations.
Do you know, I did read that, and I read everything that you've just read out, but you know what struck me as the biggest, most impact sentence that he wrote this morning is the developers and their cavalier attitude towards the people whose communities that they're supposing to put their developments in, and that's the single biggest issue. I go on my holidays to Rosslare every year, Michael, and there's a lovely little wind farm down, literally nestled on the coast of a golf course down there, and the people down there get their electricity for free, and it happened in conjunction with the community, and they're all happy out. That is the exact opposite of what happened in my county. The cavalier attitude which the developer has treated, the disdain which the developer has treated the people in this community is the root of the problem here. If this was a small development that was suitable to the environment, people might have actually sat down and had reasonable conversations. This industrial development is not suited to a rural, agricultural, heritage-rich county, and that's why there is fierce opposition. And it's not just on the health grounds and on the noise grounds and on the aesthetic grounds. It's because of how the people were treated.
Hold on, you're talking about a company or a consortia of companies in business who have done nothing wrong. Surely it's up to the government to regulate in the way that you feel would be more appropriate and oblige these companies to act in a certain way.
Well, I think that's going to be the root of the the white paper that's going to be issued next week, is the approach for particularly local co-op, community-led type developments as opposed to the very large industrial-sized developments that we see in our county. And I think that the outgoing chair of SEI, he does make a valid point. There is a space for wind in this country, but it has to be nestled amongst the other options of solar, of geothermal, of biofuels. It isn't the only show that's in town, but unfortunately for the policy that exists in the department right now, it's the only show in town. That the new white paper has to spread our green energy requirements in the future across a wider spectrum of energy options, and not just to try. I think actually what was interesting as well in the article this morning, we have a plan currently at the moment that that will double the amount of wind energy farms that we have in the country. He said this morning, we don't need to do that. He reckons that another 40 actually wind farms, like the ones that I'm talking about in Rosslare or outside Enniscorthy, who are community-led projects, community-driven and wanted projects, and they benefit the community as well as benefiting the grid for us to hit our 2020 targets. There's nobody in North Meath wants this project except the people who signed up to lease their land.
Okay, well, yay or nay, there'll be much interest, I think, in the decision when the board rules on the Emlagh application, and we'll be back to it undoubtedly at the end of this week, or perhaps the end of next week.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the time you've given to this. I really do.
All right, listen, thank you indeed for joining us here on the programme this morning. Fine Gael TD for Meath East, Regina Doherty.
LMFM.